Something explosive just happened that no one expected, not the Labour Party, not the media, and certainly not Keir Starmer. A 100-year Labour stronghold has just crumbled into dust, and the result is so catastrophic, so unprecedented, it has left Starmer publicly humiliated and quite literally laughed out of the country. The heart of Labour's red wall in Wales, and carefully, has turned its back, slammed the door, and sent a brutal message to Westminster. We're done. We're done with empty promises, with career politicians, with control from London for the first time since 1918. Labour has been thrown out of one of its safest seats, not narrowly, but crushed beyond recognition. And just as this political earthquake rips through Wales, another disaster unfolds. Starmer's immigration plan is collapsing live, exposed as a complete failure. From the valleys of Wales to the cliffs of Dover, chaos reigns. This is not just a defeat. This is the beginning of the end. Let's break it all down. For more than a century, carefully stood as a symbol of Labour's dominance in Wales, a bastion of working class pride, union strength and political loyalty. Since 1918, it didn't matter who led Labour or what the national mood was, carefully always stayed red. Always, but not anymore. In one thunderous by-election result, everything changed. Triggered by the tragic death of Labour MS Heffin David, this vote should have been a formality, a rubber stamp on Labour's control. Instead, it turned into a historic rejection. Plaid Cymru's Lindsay Whittle didn't just win, he obliterated the opposition. Securing 15,961 votes, he left Reform UK in second place with 12,113. Labour, a humiliating 3,713 votes. That's not just a drop. That's a 34.9% collapse since 2021, a political annihilation that hasn't been seen in decades. What's worse, turnout actually rose above 50%. This wasn't some quiet protest. It was loud. It was active. It was voters storming the ballot box to say no more. No more to a party that took them for granted. No more to Starmer's cold corporate vision of politics. And when Whittle took to the stage, his words cut deep. Wales, we're at the dawn of a new beginning, he declared, with the crowd erupting. He paid his respects to Heffin David, but then turned the spotlight on Westminster, promising a new path for Wales, one that wouldn't bow to London. He said this win felt better than scoring the winning try against New Zealand. And make no mistake, for Wales, it did. This wasn't just a Plaid victory, it was a declaration of war against Labour. Plaid Cymru leader Rune ap Your-Worth wasted no time driving the dagger deeper. Standing tall, he called Labour tired, out of touch, and praised voters for choosing hope over division. For years, Plaid was dismissed as a protest vote, a voice on the sidelines. Not anymore. Last night proved they are now a serious contender for power in Wales. But it wasn't just Plaid who surged. Reform UK's Zia Yousaf jumped from 1.7% to a staggering 36% of the vote, leapfrogging Labour entirely. In his concession speech, Yousaf said it loud and clear: the old politics is dead. The next Senedd elections will be a fight between Reform and Plaid and Labour. They're not even in the ring anymore. In carefully, Labour and the Tories together scraped just 13% of the vote. In a seat they used to rule, that's not a bad result. That's a funeral. The people of Carefully have spoken, and what they've said is brutal. We don't want you anymore. Not your excuses, not your slogans, not your leader. They laughed Starmer out of Wales, and the echoes are still ringing in Westminster. But the most damning moment didn't come from the opposition. It came from inside Labour's own ranks. Even before the votes were counted, insiders were already turning on Starmer. One source told reporters that this was his failure, a defeat for Starmerism, not for Vaughan, Gething or the local team. In other words, the knives were out, the blame was clear, and the message: Starmer's leadership is the problem. Labour's Ellen Davies tried to put on a brave face on GB News, saying there was still time to turn things around. But within hours, that line looked ridiculous. The facts spoke louder. Starmer has overseen the destruction of a century-old safe seat. No other Labour leader in modern history can say that, and no spin doctor can explain it away. This wasn't just a swing. This was a revolution, a moment when the people finally snapped, looked at Labour and said, you don't represent us anymore. Not here, not now, not ever again. What happened in Carefully wasn't a one-off, it was a warning shot. And it has now turned into a full-scale mutiny against Keir Starmer's leadership. Inside the Labour Party, the panic is setting in. Senior figures are no longer hiding their frustration. They're leaking, they're whispering, and they're already preparing for the blame game. Because the truth is undeniable. Starmer didn't just lose a seat, he lost the seat, the very heart of Labour's historic identity, a place that never turned its back through Thatcher, through Blair, through Brexit, now gone. And not because of some sudden swing, but because voters actively rejected him. They saw through the PR campaigns, the stage-managed speeches, and the robotic messaging. What they saw was a man who has no connection to the people he claims to represent. In Wales, where Labour once drew its moral strength, Keir Starmer is now a symbol of everything that's wrong. A man from London who speaks in slogans and governs with detachment. That image has shattered whatever trust still existed. In Carefully, they didn't just vote against Labour. They laughed it out of the room. This is more than a crisis of image. This is a collapse of control. Keir Starmer came to power promising stability, competence and unity. But after this result, those words feel empty. Voters aren't seeing competence, they're seeing cowardice. They're seeing a party afraid to stand for anything, terrified of its own base, and obsessed with chasing focus groups instead of principles. And while Starmer tries to present himself as the adult in the room, the people are realising the room is empty. No conviction, no fire, no fight, and now no base. The red wall is gone, not cracked, gone. It started in the north of England in 2019, and now it's swept into the valleys of Wales. The loyalty Labour once counted on has turned into anger, and that anger is finding new homes in Reform UK and Plaid Cymru. These are not traditional allies. One is nationalist, the other is populist. But what unites their supporters is rage. Rage at being ignored, sidelined and betrayed by a party that promised change and delivered silence. And that rage is contagious. Already you can see the ripple effects across the UK. In seats once considered untouchable, Labour MPs are suddenly nervous. In working class communities, Labour campaigners are being met with cold shoulders and hard questions. And on social media, the backlash is erupting. Viral clips, furious commentary and a tidal wave of Labour is finished posts have flooded timelines. The internet doesn't forget. And this by-election humiliation is being watched around the world. The idea that Labour could fall to third place in a seat it once dominated is not just shocking, it's historic, and it speaks to a deeper truth. People are done waiting. They're done waiting for Labour to act, to lead, to fight. Keir Starmer's slow, calculated politics has hit a wall, and now that wall is crumbling under the weight of voter fury. And if that wasn't enough, the story takes an even darker turn, because just as Starmer was facing collapse in Wales, his immigration policy, the one he's been using to show he's tough and pragmatic, completely imploded. Reports have now confirmed what critics warned. The controversial one-in, one-out policy is a total disaster. Sold to the public as a solution to stop illegal channel crossings, it's done the exact opposite. Migrants are still arriving in record numbers while the government's supposed deportations have turned into a revolving door. The numbers are staggering. Since the policy began in August, over 10,000 people have illegally crossed into the UK, while only 42 have been returned to France. In return, Britain has taken in just 23 migrants legally, all under the same agreement. The balance is broken, the deterrent has failed, and the boats keep coming. This isn't control. This is chaos. The very chaos Starmer promised to end. Conservative MP Matt Vickers didn't hold back. In an explosive interview, he called the policy misleading, hypocritical, and doomed to fail. And he didn't stop there. He ripped into Starmer personally, accusing him of weakening Britain's borders, opposing every serious deterrent, and even voting against laws that would deport foreign criminals. No wonder our borders are in chaos, he said. And the worst part, he's not wrong. Even members of Starmer's own front bench have admitted the Home Office has been set up to fail. Now, as pressure builds and crossings spike, the government is scrambling to expand the scheme to other European nations. But critics aren't buying it. They say the numbers prove one thing. People smugglers aren't afraid of Starmer. And neither are the migrants boarding the boats. The threat is gone, the policy is mocked, and the public is furious. So now Keir Starmer faces a double disaster. Politically crushed in Wales and exposed as weak on immigration. In both cases, the pattern is the same. A party too slow to act, too afraid to lead, and too detached to care. And voters, they're watching, they're remembering, they're turning. This isn't just a bad week, this is a turning point, and the cracks in Starmer's leadership are spreading fast. Something deep is shifting beneath the surface of British politics. And Keir Starmer's team knows it. This isn't just about one shocking election result. This is a symptom of a nationwide revolt that's been building silently for years. What carefully exposed in one night is a truth that Starmer and the Labour machine have desperately tried to ignore. The people are no longer on their side. This isn't a communications issue. It's not a policy oversight. It's a total collapse of connection between the party and the people who once trusted it with everything. In the working class communities that built the Labour movement, from the valleys of Wales to the mining towns of the north, voters are rising up. They feel abandoned, ignored and insulted. And now they are finally speaking back, which not with protests or speeches, but with their votes. Loud, powerful and final. For decades, Labour ran on loyalty, the idea that no matter how bad things got, the base would never leave. But that loyalty has snapped. And it didn't just snap in carefully, it's snapping across the country. People are tired of being told to be patient. They're tired of being lectured by leaders who have never lived their struggles. They see the homelessness crisis growing. They see wages stagnating. They see immigration rising while communities strain to cope. And through it all, Labour has offered them what? More bureaucracy, more caution, more talking points. Starmer's strategy has been to sit on the fence, speak in carefully tested phrases and avoid controversy at all costs. But to ordinary people, that looks like cowardice. It looks like someone who doesn't care enough to fight. Someone who talks about leadership but is too afraid to lead. And so the people are choosing new champions. In Wales, they chose Plaid. In England, they're drifting toward Reform UK. These aren't just political shifts. They are warning signs of a democratic rebellion. Reform's rise isn't about one man or one issue. It's about a movement that taps into the raw frustration millions feel, and Plaid's surge shows that Welsh voters are no longer content to be managed by London's agenda. They want their own vision, their own voice, and Labour isn't providing it. Instead, Labour has become the party of status quo, safe, predictable, power-hungry, and that image is toxic in today's Britain. Because what people want right now is change. Urgent, radical, unapologetic change. Even Labour's most loyal supporters are beginning to whisper it, that maybe Starmer isn't the one, that maybe he's too polished, too distant, too consumed by strategy. And when that doubt starts to spread inside a political movement, it doesn't take long before the cracks become collapse. You can feel it now. The ground is shifting. The Labour Party of Keir Starmer is being hollowed out from within, and he's running out of places to hide. Carefully was supposed to be a safe harbour. Instead, it turned into a shipwreck. And now as the tide turns across the nation, Starmer finds himself adrift, mocked, blamed and isolated. There's a sense in the air that something much bigger is coming. The next general election is no longer a guaranteed triumph for Labour. In fact, if the party continues down this path, it might be walking straight into a trap of its own making. The public's patience has run dry. Starmer's wait-and-see approach is being read as weakness. And while he scrambles to hold the centre, the fringes are rising with fury. If the Labour leadership doesn't wake up now, carefully will be remembered not as an anomaly, but as the first domino in a national collapse. A collapse led by the very people Labour was built to represent. And that is the ultimate betrayal. Keir Starmer's entire political project, built on control, moderation and managed silence, is now crumbling in full view of the public. The vision he sold to Labour members, to Parliament and to the nation was simple: competence over chaos, discipline over division. But after the exposed disaster of his immigration policy, after the open revolt brewing in his own party, all that's left is a hollow promise echoing through a country that stopped listening. Starmer claimed to be the antidote to Conservative failure. But voters now see a mirror image, cold, disconnected, and afraid to speak with conviction. And worse still, they see weakness. In politics, nothing is deadlier. The fall of Carefully didn't just shock Labour, it emboldened their enemies. It proved that no seat is safe, no legacy guaranteed. No stronghold unbreakable. When even the Welsh heartland turns its back, the illusion of invincibility shatters, and so does the leader who built his strategy on it. Across social media, the backlash is relentless. Viral headlines mock Starmer's century-old empire in ruins. Political commentators are now openly asking if he's lost control of the narrative, or worse, if he ever had it to begin with. Online, Labour's collapse has been branded with brutal hashtags like Red Wall Rubble and Starmer humiliated, and while party spokespeople try to downplay it, the reality is sinking in. Momentum is gone, enthusiasm is dead, and the base is bleeding. Former Labour loyalists are defecting to Plaid, to Reform, or worse, disengaging entirely. The very voters who kept Labour alive through war, through crisis, through decades of hardship, have had enough. They're not interested in Starmer's carefully rehearsed sound bites. They're looking for action, strength, identity. And when they look at Keir Starmer, they see none of it. What they do see is a leader who opposed border protections, who hesitated to challenge mass migration, who allowed Britain's asylum chaos to spiral into embarrassment. The one-in, one-out immigration scheme sold as a responsible compromise has turned into a punchline. 10,000 new illegal arrivals, only 42 returned. And now we find out Britain has taken in more than it sent back with no end in sight. The boats haven't stopped, the traffickers haven't paused, and the public is watching this failure unfold in real time. Starmer tried to paint the Tories as incompetent, but now he's the one overseeing policies that collapse under their own weight. And when Conservative MPs start sounding more in touch with the public mood than the Labour leader, you know something is seriously wrong. Meanwhile, inside the Labour Party, the silence is becoming deafening. MPs who once praised Starmer are going quiet. Backbenchers are fuming. Advisors are panicking. A party that once hoped for a majority government now fears a rebellion. And Starmer? He's stuck. Boxed in by a strategy that promised everything and delivered nothing. His allies say he needs more time, but after Carefully, time is no longer on his side. That by-election wasn't just a bump in the road, it was a collapse, a catastrophic failure that exposed the truth he's been avoiding, that the people he wants to lead no longer want him. And so Britain stands at a crossroads, with Reform UK surging, Plaid Cymru rising, and traditional parties in freefall. The political map is being redrawn. The centre cannot hold. The old alliances are dissolving. And in the middle of it all stands Keir Starmer, a man once seen as Labour's saviour, now facing the ruins of a century-old fortress he failed to defend. Carefully wasn't just a rejection, it was a humiliation. The people didn't whisper, they shouted. They didn't stay home. They marched to the polls and tore the walls down. And as the dust settles, one truth becomes clear. Starmer wasn't just defeated in Wales. He was laughed out of it. The fallout from this collapse is only just beginning, with immigration policy in tatters, internal party rebellion brewing, and public confidence at rock bottom. Keir Starmer is now a leader in name only, stripped of support, surrounded by doubt, and running out of options. The empire has fallen. The people have turned. And the headlines do not lie. Starmer has been publicly humiliated, and Britain is watching him fall. What are your thoughts on this political collapse? Do you think Starmer can survive it? Let me know in the comments below.